I'm out here on the Nisqually River. This is day 2 working on this plein air. I've got a little view of Mount Rainier in the background. I started it yesterday, and I've got another crystal clear blue day to work on it. I should be able to finish it up today. The light faded a little faster than I was thinking it would yesterday, so I packed up my paints and headed home. And I had some reference photos. I could have finished it up in the studio, but why not come back out here where it's so pretty and peaceful, standing right beside this beautiful river. Here's where the painting ended up yesterday. I smudged it a little bit getting it out of the wet paint carrier this morning. That's fine, I can touch it up. After being away from it for the night too, I can see that this is too round. I need to flatten it, make it a little sharper. I need to also trim that little bump down, just to make the overall slope a little more angular. I mentioned yesterday that when you're painting mountains, at least I like mountains that have kept their angular, almost sharp angles, sharp edges. It seems to speak mountain to me more than real rounded peaks. So I think in general I'll come back over the sky. I have some of the sky color mixed up still from yesterday, and just touch that sky edge and that smudge up a little bit, and then I'll work into the foreground. So you can see I've finished pretty much covering the mountain, these background foothills with the pine trees. Now next I'll go into this line of warmer green pines, then the deciduous trees, and then finally the foreground, the river and the snow on the rocky riverbanks. So here's how I carried my paints home yesterday. I just left my pure colors on the palette and scraped my mixed colors off of this little side palette onto the glass palette, and then I dripped a little bit of Gamsol around them to keep them nice and soft. The garage is nice and cold, down in the 40s, so that helps keep the paint soft. I've got liquid in each of these mixtures, so they will dry fast, but if they're in this closed palette in a cold environment with a little bit of Gamsol around, that helps to keep them moist. So now I'll scrape them back off in order onto the side palette and clean up the little bit of paint that leaked around and get going on the painting. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. If you haven't seen the first video, day 1 of this plein air session, check out the link in the description below. You might want to start with that video. A quick rundown again on my colors. Got the sky blues here, deeper, darker, richer blue for the top of the sky, a little lighter, more grayed out blue down toward the horizon. This is the background mountains, the pines on the mountain. These are these richer, nearer pines that will go right in here. This is a deep red shadow for around the center of interest, and a deep green shadow as it travels back into the background row of pines. This is a rich orange pine color for that row of pines. And this is kind of a shadow of those pines as they recede, and then some lights on those pines as they recede. These are watercolors that the color for the water that I mixed up. A deep electric blue, one a little richer and cooler, one a little duller and redder. This is for where the light is reflecting on the surface of the water. This is the majority of the color of the water. It is really dark. It's as dark as the shadow of the pines. So these are all really dark colors, surprisingly dark for the river water. These are for the kind of mossy, not moss, but maybe lichen or algae covered rocks in the river. And these are the rapids. So you can see where the water is being stirred up in the river. It's not that bright. You would think it would be as bright as the snow, but it's not. It's pretty dull and green, and the lightest is closest to us down here, and it's got a little bit of red, so I'll kind of blend these as I go. Start back here, this furthest set of rapids, and then work my way forward. These are the shadow color and the light color for the deciduous trees. And then I've got the snow colors. I'll use those up here in the foreground. These are what I used for the snow on the mountain. And these are the rock colors on the mountain. I'll use these and probably the sky colors for the near rocks. It's pretty close, as well as that rapid color. I don't want to try to mix up all the shades of pastel blues and reds, yellows and greens that I'm seeing in the rocks all around me. It's beautiful, but it would take me another day to mix all those different colors. So I'm going to simplify it. I'm going to use colors that I use elsewhere in the painting. All my paints are still really wet, so that should be nice and easy to paint. I may need to mix up a little more snow color. I may not have enough here. We'll see how it goes. I may have to mix up just a little bit more toward the end to cover what I have here. Or I may leave kind of the stained panel and mix up more later when I finish the painting off in the studio. Make sure my brush is nice and clean before I paint the sky colors again. John CARLSON, the excellent landscape artist and teacher, his instruction is don't copy nature tone for tone, but work toward the colors and harmonies that will bring about the best picture. I'm paraphrasing there. I don't think that's the exact quote, but that's what I take from it. I'm not at the level yet where I change things up a whole lot when I'm doing plein air paintings. You've seen me move things around a bit. I'm starting to push more on the placement, but as far as changing the colors, I'm seeing a lot. I'm pretty careful to try to match tone for tone. I may go a little warmer, a little cooler than what I'm actually seeing. And in this case, I'm painting with my amber sunglasses on just because it's so bright out here. But just looking at this scene, thinking about paintings that I've loved of mountains before, I'm wanting more of this warm rock color in the mountain. So what I'm going to do is exaggerate that rock face a bit. And it's not too big of an exaggeration, because in the summer, that snow on the mountain will melt off and expose a lot more of that warm rock. So I'm just going to add a little bit down here and see how it feels. I can always correct it later. Got a small Evergreen Filbert here. And I've got a cooler, grayer rock color here, and I've got a warmer rock color here. Let's just put some down and see how it looks. If I imagine there's more rock here, I've got to think about the sun is pretty much straight on, so there's going to be shadow right under the lip of this ridge, but below that there's going to be sun hitting these rock surfaces. I could add some rock here. That's a little light in value, so I'm going to dip into this brown that I mixed and get something just a touch darker. Looking at the mountain, imagining how those rock faces might be exposed. kind of want more up here as well, so I'm going to expose more rock up here, following these ridge lines in the snow that are there. Being careful not to repeat sizes and angles. I'm gonna just touch the burnt sienna, add a little bit of vibrancy. I'm going to take the sky brush and just add a little bit of value of the sky where I think the shadows might look interesting. All right. That's not too much, I don't think. I can always play with it, adjust it more in the studio, but that does add a lot of, just that little bit added a lot of visual interest. Now I'll get out this rosemary long flat. It's a Master Series 279. It's either real mongoose or it's imitation mongoose hair, but it gives a nice kind of random wild brush stroke that I like. I've got a couple different sizes. This is a size 3. I'm going to start with it for these pines in the far background, and I'll paint with the edge, I'll paint with the tip, you know, in different directions. It's a flat, but it has kind of a wide head, so you can get a lot of different brush strokes from it. Once you wet your brush, you can actually smooth it down and get a pretty thin line. It's a nice brush to work with. So I'm thinking about where the sun is coming from. It's aimed right at the scene, so the shadows are minimized. There's just little graphic patterns of shadow in there. So what I'm going to do is go in with the kind of mid value. I'll start out lighter and grayer in the background and work toward more rich to this point, and then I'll go back in and add the shadows into that. Wet my brush just a little bit with jam salt to start with. I may switch to a larger brush as I get over here. This is the majority of my pine color here. So I'm going to start with it. I'll add a little bit of this with my brush to gray it out to the furthest trees. Start with this, and I'll add a little bit of this, and just see how it looks on the panel. You can see they're roughly the same value, but this color is just a lot richer. It's a little darker too. Pines actually come back up over here, which adds some interest in the scene. can see, just throwing a little bit of higher value, more intense color back in there really adds some interest. I'm thinking about the scale. The scale of this tree, this pine, is much smaller than the pines will be here. I'm going to switch to a larger brush now, and that'll help me with the scale. Same type brush, Rosemary Masters, long flat. This is the number 4, same brush. And I'm going to start to mix in this more vibrant color of the same value now to provide a smooth transition. Looking out at the scene, but not copying it exactly. I'm going to paint the deciduous trees back in on top of that. I think I want a little larger one right about here. I want a little more orange one right beside it. Even go back to this dull color and put a dull tree in there, because I do, in the background there, I do see there's some that are a little duller. Now I'm getting closer to the center of interest here, so I want to cut back on the pine around this area, but I'll paint down into it so that I get a nice soft transition. Let's see, I think I want a real rich, I'm going to grab this rich color here and dip into the burnt sienna. Maybe a little bit of cad yellow. Throw a little gray one right beside it for pretty contrast. Back here as well. Now there's an interesting shaped one right on the side of this guy. I think I'll put it here. It's got a really beautiful shape. I'll put the trunk in, which just looks like a dark brown. Got below the shadow color and a little bit of this green. Get a nice sharp bead on my small palette knife. And mark out the trunk. Go ahead and put the trunk of this tall one until I use some of this nice brown. Maybe a touch of this lighter one and a little bit of red. of that off. Now I can take this same rosemary and I want this cooler. Touch this, just add some cool. Darken it a little bit more. I'm going to paint this interesting shaped one. And now I'm taking my brush and I'm kind of flattening it on the palette and getting a sharpened edge, a line as I can get. And now I'll just touch it to the palette. That looks good. So a light touch and a little flick, and I can create the upturned. It's a long sloping bough, real distinctive shape, different than the other trees there. And they get longer the farther down they go, and they're not quite even, so it looks like on the north side they're a little bit lower than on the south side. It'd be fun to know exactly why it is like that, but as an artist, all I'm trying to do is capture what I observe. The tree gets darker, a lot darker as it goes down, and dip into that shadow color. And I actually see a little bit of this electric blue in those shadows, so I'm going to grab some of that as well. It's a little cool, so I'm going to grab some of this warm shadow. And now this more vibrant pine is going to come in front of this guy. So I'll just make a thin layer that I can paint into. And I want, for some reason, I want a nice light color here. Still dull and cool, but this bough is catching some light, so I just want to try to put a little bit of light on there. This guy too. Maybe one across here, and I'll call that good. Well, a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now this one is really warm and high value compared to that one. So I'm going to dip into my deciduous tree color actually. Nice warm lavender, and then my high value orange green, maybe a little bit of cad yellow as well. And just see what that looks like. Now just see what that looks like against the mountain. Boy, some rocks collapsed behind me off the riverbank. Snow must be melting. Startled me. There are animals out here, cougars and bears, so I do try to stay aware. And it's always nice to paint with a buddy so that more eyes. Yeah, that's nice. Try not to cover that. Try not to cover that trunk up completely. Now when I look at that tree, it also has the majority of its long branches sticking out to the south. Just a little bit of this higher value. There are some on this side, on the north side, but the majority are coming out toward the south. That's too dark, so I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. Some long ones on this side, not many. And a few more that are curling out at different angles. I want it to go right off the top of the panel. And this one is catching a little bit of warmth. The branches are getting longer and beefier, heavier toward the base. Exaggerate that a little bit. And they get a little greener and heavier toward the bottom. A little more orange as well. There's some beautiful yellow-green highlights and some of these branches down low. Add back some of this gray in the background to add some visual interest. Okay. That looks pretty good. I'll clean my brush and I'll use this same brush to paint the deciduous trees. Okay. Thinking about the scale again and the distance. So I'm dipping into some of this grayish warm and then into my deciduous tree highlight color, lighter color, and painting the far distant deciduous trees. A little random suggestion is all I need. And a little bit of the underpainting showing through to help me out. I'll dip into the darker color as well and just see how that looks on the panel. That dark starts to show up right about in here. Trees are leafless deciduous trees, so you can see the branches. I'm not going to try to paint every branch, but I'm going to suggest the branches with my brush stroke. Things are getting bigger, but I don't want this to be the same shape as this, to be the same shape as this, so trying to keep random shapes going, keep variety going. Sometimes you can even suggest the trunks with this brush, get a nice sharp edge with a lighter value. And just draw into the paint that you put down. Now things are getting warmer as they get closer, so I'm going to add some of this red, burnt sienna, red, maybe a little lighter. Might actually look kind of nice up on the mountain too. Let's see what it looks like. just deciduous trees. Higher value. A lot of warmth right toward the center of interest here. Not warm enough. Need to add more red. Front sienna. Again, I'm looking at the structure of the tree. There's kind of a halo of leafless branches coming out in a general arc. Toward the bottom of the tree, they're sweeping up. There's an upward sweep from the ground and away from the background trees. And at the top, there's a sweep up this way and then back down. See if I can capture that. If I try to paint every branch, it's going to become a muddy mess. So instead, I'll just try to paint one or two branches that carry that message. And then I can come back in with some smaller branches later. I'm not going to put this color in here because in here is darker shadow and the greenish grayish trunks of those trees. So all of this kind of mauve, warm tips of these leafless branches are out toward the outside. So it comes up and then it sweeps down and out again. Come up and sweep down and out. And there's some nice warmth again right at the top. As the branches get higher, that initial point from the main trunk is more vertical, and then it kind of curves down and then back up. I'll add a little bit of lighter value for highlight. That's going to be really cool, so I'm going to add some light yellow. I'm just looking at the scene, squinting a little bit. I can see there's only a couple spots where you really get that message. There's actually a little hint of green, vibrant green, down in this area as well. Put my shadow, warm shadow, right into this. Throw a little cool shadow in there as well. Now I'll throw some of these cool shadows down in the pines as well. Right on the edge of this deciduous tree. There's some nice cool shadow. Throw a little warm shadow here. And again, I'm seeing kind of a splayed out pattern to the branches. There's some warm shadow up in here. Cool shadow, throwing a little bit of this electric blue. Shadows down about midway have some nice vibrant green from the sun. So I'm throwing those in as well. A little variety, a little contrast. I'll take the same brush and try to paint the trunks of those deciduous trees near the center of interest in. Clean out most of the paint on the brush. I'm just going to use a little bit of this river rapid color, pretty darn close to what I'm seeing in the tree. What's in the tree maybe a little more yellow, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white. And see what that looks like. I can go back in with this other color and correct those lines I just put in, the trunks and the shadows. That's close to what I'm seeing when I squint. Good enough for here. I can clean it up more when I get back to the studio. I do want to add this other trunk I'm seeing, really bright, warm. Alright, stepping back for a minute, I can see that I need to add just a little more height to the pines in this area. They're a little low. It feels like that angle's too sharp. Also, I don't like how this tree is directly on top of the peak here. It's too in line with that peak. So I think what I'll do, and what I'm actually seeing, is that the peak is somewhere off the side of the panel. So I'm just going to adjust that with some sky color. And then I'll carry on with the pine, the vibrant pine over here, and in the river. I'm going to go ahead and paint the white of the snow in the foreground in. I think it'll go on cleaner if I paint it now before I paint the riverbed rocks or the river. Brush so I can get a good drawing back in here around the center of interest, and then as I come forward I'll use a bigger brush. the river, I'm seeing that the lines of rapids are flat in the distance, and then as they come around closer to me, they're kind of fanning out. I don't want to overdo that, but I want to observe it and try to capture it, simplify it. Here's where it ended up. A beautiful time, a couple really beautiful days here, painting Mount Rainier, Tahoma, from the Nisqually River. I really enjoyed it. I hope this is coming out. There's probably a lot of glare on it. Pretty happy with it. I think I need to clean this area up a little bit. I wanted it to be kind of a secondary center of interest, so there's a lot of action there. There's some leaves of the tree over there going up into the sky. I kind of like it, but I think the base of it, especially the rocks along the bank, they need some help. They don't quite read right at the moment, but I got the colors down and got the basic feel of the place. Yeah, pretty happy with the exercise. I'll take it back to the studio and clean it up and put it out on my website. As always, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.